The road to the other side. On a moonless night, the deserted highway slicing through the heart of Nevada looked like a never-ending black ocean. John and Lisa, a young couple, were on their way to Las Vegas for a fun-filled weekend. Fate had other plans. In the middle of nowhere, the car sputtered and died. With no cell signal and darkness closing in around them, they realized they were trapped in a place where reality blurred. Supernatural. The night was dark and starless, only sound being the engine of John's car grumbling into inevitable silence. Lisa glanced at her boyfriend with a mix of frustration and fear. "Can't believe we're stuck in the middle of nowhere with a broken car," he said, tapping the dashboard lightly. John sighed, trying to keep his cool. "I told you we should have taken that exit back on the highway," he replied, staring out at the empty road ahead. "But who knows, maybe there's a town just up ahead." Lisa looked at him, then at the darkness surrounding them. "There's nothing out here, John. Absolutely nothing." They got out of the car, old Nevada wind whipping against their faces, bringing a chill that seemed to seep right into their bones. In the distance, a coyote howled, its cry echoing across the vastness of the night. "Let's try to find some signal," John suggested, raising his phone to the sky, but the device remained serviceless. "We'll have to walk." They began trudging down the road, their footsteps echoing on the empty asphalt. After a few minutes, the darkness around them seemed to grow denser, like the night itself was swallowing the road. Suddenly, Lisa stopped. "John, did you hear that?" He stopped too, his heart quickening. "Hear what?" A low, muffled sound like a whisper came out of nowhere, felt as close as a breath in their ear. Lisa grabbed John's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" he exclaimed. Before John could answer, a headlight appeared in the distance, a single beam of light cutting through the darkness. The couple let out a sigh of relief. Finally, someone on the road. But as the vehicle approached, something felt off. The headlights swayed from side to side as if the driver was drunk or blind. The car was an old model, Plymouth Fury, and as it passed them, a chill ran down John's spine. There was no one behind the wheel. "Oh my God, what was that?" Lisa whispered. John looked back, watching the car disappear into the horizon, the headlights swinging until it vanished completely. I don't know." They kept walking, but now fear clung to them. The sound of their footsteps seemed louder, heavier, as if something or someone was following them. Suddenly, the screeching of tires on asphalt came from behind. Same Plymouth Fury, now at a safe distance, its headlights blinking erratically. "It's following us," Lisa said, her voice trembling. John grabbed her hand and started running. They ran and ran, the sound of the car chasing them, always keeping a distance that seemed intentional. And then, as if out of nowhere, the car vanished again. "This isn't real," John said, stopping to catch his breath. "This is some kind of nightmare." Lisa pointed up the road. "Look, John, lights." There were neon lights blinking in a random pattern, glowing over what looked like an abandoned gas station. "Let's head there. Maybe they have a phone." As they approached, they noticed the place was falling apart. The windows were shattered, the gas pumps rusted and empty. But there was a phone booth in the corner. John ran over, grabbing the receiver. "It's working," he said, dialing 911. But when he put the phone to his ear, he didn't hear the familiar tone of a connecting call, just a muffled whisper. "Leave." He dropped the receiver as if burned. "You need to get out of here now." But when he turned around, Lisa was gone. "Lisa! Lisa!" The sound of an engine roared again, and John saw the Plymouth Fury parked on the other side of the road, its headlights swinging slowly. And then he saw Lisa, standing next to the car like she was in a trance. "Lisa, get away from there." She didn't respond. Her eyes were glazed, fixed on the road ahead. Before he could run to her, the car took off, taking Lisa with it. John chased after the car, shouting, but the vehicle disappeared into the darkness. He collapsed to his knees on the asphalt, despair washing over him. Suddenly, the headlight appeared again, this time directly in his path. John froze for a moment. Something inside him made him jump to the side, just in time to avoid being run over. Car whizzed past, then stopped a few yards ahead. Passenger door slowly opened, and Lisa stepped out, staggering. "Lisa!" John ran to her. She looked at him with empty eyes, her voice a raspy whisper. "We weren't supposed to be here, John." Before he could respond, The screeching of tires was heard again, and the car disappeared into the night, leaving only the echo of their screams behind. The couple was never seen again. The road was closed days later, and rumors of supernatural events began to circulate. Some say if you stop on that road at midnight, you can still hear Lisa's screams and the sound of that haunted Plymouth Fury's engine, hunting for its next victim in the endless darkness. The hotel on the unknown road. On a cold, rainy early morning, Alice was driving alone down the I-30, heading from Dallas to Memphis. She was running from something that terrified her, but what she didn't know was that the real horror was ahead. The empty road, flanked by dark fields and twisted trees, seemed to stretch infinitely. And then, amidst the storm, Alice spotted a roadside hotel, a place that seemed to offer safe shelter. She was about to discover that the hotel was anything but. Rain pounded against the windshield, the wipers working frantically to maintain minimal visibility. Alice gripped the steering wheel tightly, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, trying to ignore the fatigue weighing down her eyelids. She had been driving for hours, and the coffee she drank back in Dallas had lost its effect. She glanced at the dashboard. Midnight. Still over 5 hours to Memphis. "What was I thinking, making this trip alone?" she muttered to herself. The radio had been off for a while. Music or talk show hosts only made her more nervous. Feeling of being utterly alone was unsettling. She had left Dallas in a rush, fleeing a situation that made her anxious, but the lonely road only amplified her fears. Then she saw it, a roadside hotel, dimly lit, with a neon sign flickering "Hotel" in faded red letters. The place looked old-fashioned, but at the same time offered a refuge from the storm. She hesitated, but sleep won over. She decided a night's rest wouldn't hurt. Pulling into the parking lot, she noticed only a few cars. The lobby was lit, but there was no sign of life. Alice got out of the car and ran to the entrance, huddling against the cold rain. As she stepped inside, a bell chimed, and she felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The place was decorated with antique furniture, well preserved. It was like a step back into the 1960s. She approached the front desk, where a middle-aged man with gray hair and a friendly smile was waiting for her. "Welcome," he said in a raspy but warm voice. "How can I help you on this stormy night?" "I'd like a room," Alice replied, trying to ignore the slight discomfort she felt looking at him. "Just for one night." Of course," the man replied, taking a key from the panel behind him. "Room 13, one of our best." He slid the key across the counter. "I hope you find the rest you're looking for." Alice thanked him, took the key, and headed for the elevator. When the doors opened, she felt a shiver run down her spine. The elevator was covered in mirrors, reflecting her image endlessly. She pressed the button for the 3rd floor, and the doors closed slowly. The elevator climbed in silence, the sound of metal cables creaking with each movement. When the doors finally opened, she hurried out, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. The hallway was long and dimly lit. Dark red carpets and walls covered in faded floral wallpaper. Alice walked down the hall until she found door number 13. As she opened the door, a sense of unease washed over her. The room was simple, but something felt off. The air was heavy, filled with a smell of mold and something else. Something she couldn't identify. She was too tired to care. She locked the door, tossed her bag on an armchair, and lay down on the bed. That's when she heard it. A soft whisper, almost imperceptible. Alice sat up slowly, her eyes scanning the room. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice low and uncertain. The room responded with silence, but the whisper returned, clearer this time. "Leave. You shouldn't be here." Alice felt her heart beat faster. She looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. Her eyes landed on the large mirror on the wall opposite the bed. She approached it cautiously. In the reflection, she saw something move behind her. She turned quickly, but the room was empty. She looked back at the mirror and, to her horror, saw a woman standing behind her, with long, disheveled hair covering her face, dressed in a dirty white gown. "Who are you?" Alice screamed, stepping back. But the woman in the mirror didn't move, but slowly raised her hand, pointing to the door. Panic took over Alice. She grabbed her bag and ran to the door, frantically twisting the knob. The door wouldn't open. No, this can't be happening," she screamed, pounding on the solid wood. "Let me out." The whisper came back, louder this time, almost a shout. "You shouldn't be here." Alice turned back to the mirror and saw the woman now standing right behind her, her face twisted in an expression of rage and pain. She tried the door again, and this time, with a snap, it opened. Alice ran into the hallway, breathing heavily, her eyes wide with fear. The hallway seemed darker than before, the lights flickering frantically. She ran to the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly until the doors opened. He stepped inside, pressed the ground floor button, and backed away from the mirrors. The elevator started descending, but instead of stopping at the lobby, it kept going. Down, down, to a floor not listed on the panel. The doors opened to reveal a completely different hallway. This one was in ruins, with peeling walls and dark stains covering the floor. Alice stepped out slowly, fear gripping every part of her. At the end of the hallway, she saw a door slightly ajar with a faint light shining through it. She approached the door cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. When she pushed the door open, the room inside was identical to hers, but inside, on the bed, lay the body of a woman, the woman from the mirror. Before Alice could react, the door slammed shut behind her. She tried to open it, but it was locked again. The woman on the bed started to move, slowly sitting up, her empty eyes fixed on Alice. Desperate, Alice ran to the mirror in the room, the same mirror that was in her previous room. But now, instead of her reflection, she saw the road outside the hotel. The road she should have kept driving on. "Leave," the woman whispered again. But this time, Alice didn't need to be told twice. She ran toward the mirror and somehow passed through the glass, falling onto the hard ground of the road. When she got up, the hotel was gone. The road was deserted again, just the distant sound of thunder in the night. Alice ran to her car, jumped in and started the engine, not looking back. She drove full speed towards Memphis, not stopping. But whenever she glanced in the rearview mirror, she had the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Something she should never have encountered on that godforsaken road. The last stop, Sarah was driving alone on US Route 50, known as the loneliest road in Nevada. She was on her way to a small village near Carson City to visit a friend she hadn't seen in years. The road was long, deserted, and desolate, cutting through the vast snowy desert. When the car started having trouble, Sarah soon realized that something much more sinister was waiting for her in the vastness of solitude. Sarah drove with her eyes fixed on the endless road. Night had fallen hours ago, and the only sound was the car's engine echoing in the silent expanse of the desert. The soft music playing on the radio did little to ease her unease. Lights on the dashboard showed the tank was nearly empty. She should have stopped at the last gas station, but she was eager to reach her destination and thought she'd find another one along the way. What she didn't expect was the next gas station being miles away, or her car starting to show signs of trouble in the middle of nowhere. The engine started sputtering, and suddenly, a loud noise, pop that echoed like a gunshot in the calm night. The car lost power, and despite her desperate attempts to accelerate, finally died. Sarah pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the engine, and tried to start it again. There was no response, just the sound of a dead engine. "Damn it," she exclaimed, hitting the steering wheel. She grabbed her phone to call for help, but panic grew when she saw there was no signal. The road was completely deserted, and the only light came from her car's headlights. She found herself surrounded by the dark immensity, desert. There was no way she could walk for help, not this late and not alone. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "All right, I'll wait," she thought. "Someone's bound to come by at some point." She leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes, trying to get some rest. But then she heard a sound. Faint scratching noise coming from outside the car. She froze. "It's just the wind," she thought, trying to calm her nerves. But the sound continued, now clearer, as if something or someone was scratching along the side of the car. Her heart started to beat faster. "Who's there?" She called out, voice trembling. She looked around, but all she saw was darkness. She decided she needed to check. She grabbed a flashlight she kept in the glove compartment and got out of the car, shining it along the side. Cold wind hit her, sending chills down her spine. There was nothing, not a soul. She took a step forward, shining the light around, but the desert was empty and silent. Just the sound of the wind moving the sand. She started to head back to the car when she heard something that made her stop. Faint laugh, almost inaudible but human, coming from the dark. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She pointed the flashlight in the direction of the sound, but saw nothing. Suddenly, the car's headlights began to flicker. But the car's off, he thought, panic starting to set in. Whatever was out there, it was messing with her. This isn't real. It's just fatigue, she muttered to herself, trying to stay calm. She got back into the car and locked the doors. But the laughter continued, now louder, coming from all sides, like several people were laughing around the car. She looked in the rearview mirror and saw movement in the darkness, a shadow moving quickly. Suddenly, a loud bang on the driver's side window made Sarah scream. She turned her head quickly, but there was nothing there. Her breathing was rapid, and she gripped the steering wheel tightly. The laughter stopped abruptly, and the silence that followed was even more terrifying. Sarah decided she couldn't stay there. She tried starting the car again, and miraculously, the engine roared to life. She let out a sigh of relief and floored the gas pedal, driving as fast as she could. The road ahead seemed endless, and the shadows around her seemed to stretch. Something was moving with it. Then she saw a light in the distance. "A gas station," she exclaimed, heart pounding with hope. She approached quickly, but as she got closer, the light seemed weak and flickering, almost like a mirage. Still, she kept going. When she finally arrived, she realized the gas station was old, abandoned, broken and rusted fuel pump. But the strangest thing was the light shining from inside a small shop next to it. She parked and got out of the car, hesitantly. "Hello?" she called out, approaching the shop. There was no answer. She pushed open the glass door, which creaked loudly. Inside, the shop was dirty and covered in dust. The counter was clean, and behind it, an old radio was playing a soft, haunting melody. She looked around, feeling more uncomfortable by the second. As she turned to leave, the shop door slammed shut with a loud bang. She ran to the door and tried to open it. It was locked. "No, this can't be happening," she shouted, pulling on the handle. Suddenly, the radio made a high-pitched sound, and the music stopped, replaced by static. A deep voice came through the static. "You shouldn't have stopped here." Sarah stared at the radio, heart racing. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" Voice laughed, cold, distorted laugh. "They're coming for you." She looked outside through the dusty window and saw what looked like shadows moving on the road, coming toward the station. "No, this isn't real," she repeated, trying to convince herself. The shadows got closer and she realized they were human figures, but something was terribly wrong with them. They didn't walk, they floated, and their faces were twisted in expressions of agony. The laughter on the radio grew louder, more insane. Desperate, Sarah ran to the back of the shop, looking for an exit. She found a back door and opened it, stepping out into a narrow alley. She ran as fast as she could toward her car, but when she got there, she saw all the windows were fogged up, like someone had been breathing on them from the inside. She opened the driver's side door and saw a reflection in the rearview mirror. A pale face smiling at her. But when she turned around, the seat was empty. With her heart pounding uncontrollably, she started the car and sped down the road, not looking back. As she drove, the laughter from the radio still echoed in her head, and the shadows on the road seemed to follow her, always lurking. Sarah knew there was no escape. The loneliest road never forgives those who dare to stop.